Oh my goodness.
The championship on the line. I mean, what an incredible run and performance in this game it's been by Levon. I mean, the whole tournament. But what he's done in this one, just slowly and steadily improving, you know, every single pawn and every single piece, about to threaten checkmate. Hans Niemann on the ropes in this, on the back foot, on the defense, and the defense incredibly hard to find.
Bring him back to boxing analogies. You gotta love it. Exactly. He's cornered by his opponent. He's absorbing blows. He's trying to turtle up and take the punishment, looking for just that one opportunity for a counterpunch, but it doesn't look like it's going to be presented here by Levon Aronian, and Magnus Carlsen even taking a moment, a step away from his game while Hikaru is given a think to evaluate this position. He as well doesn't look like he's finding any answers here for Hans Niemann.
Yeah, I wonder what's going through Magnus Carlsen's head as the clock ticks down. Hans Niemann's about to hit the 1 minute mark.
Oh my goodness.
1 minute versus 22. And you've got a narrow pass just to survive. He doesn't take that pawn with his knight. It's a rook capture instead, but this just drops a very important pawn elsewhere on the board, hitting the black rook, hitting the black bishop. Strategically now, this looks tough. White still has this idea, remind everyone, this white queen coming in. The white central pawn as well is pushing. This is a massive advantage for white.
I mean, you had Magnus watching the game, you know, it's all eyes on this matchup. Vegas loves a show, and it's Levon Aronian who's delivering a blockbuster performance right now.
Yeah, massive advantage that soon might turn into a massacre here of Hans Niemann's position. They're going to have the rook lined up with the queen here on the c-file, looking for some kind of an option, some kind of control in this game.
Yep. And two moves here strike out for Levon Aronian. One, you can defend the pinned knight by pushing your central pawn forward. That would come with a bishop trade of the dark squared bishops. Looks very powerful. You could also take this bishop, so the white knight isn't totally paralyzed. You can take the black bishop because you do attack the black queen behind it. So we would see a sequence of trades there. We would head to an endgame if that does happen. I think Levon Aronian wants to keep pieces on the board, though, Tanya. He looks like he's in that type of mood.
I'd love to get the d pawn rolling up the board, you know, if you're white. And the thing is that these moves are not difficult to find either. It's not something that you would call a superhuman move to push that d pawn. It's sort of begging to be played currently. And Levon, a nod of his head. You know he's done everything right. Magnus, he continues looking at this incredible gameplay. I'm also just spotting a third move, actually, that could be on Levon's radar. The bishop that's disconnecting the rook could actually slide over to the center of the board and defend the knight. David, let's highlight these three moves that sort of keep the pressure. What is going on in Levon's head? Push the d pawn, trade the bishop for the knight, or get the bishop at the center of the board, and perhaps no bad choices here.
No bad choices. He pushes his pawn forward. Knight takes bishop would have gone into an endgame. The queens would have disappeared. White would have had a big advantage there, probably winning a pawn. But this one is much more dynamic, much more on brand for Levon Aronian. And look at this black knight. Yes, the bishops will come off. The knight actually jumps immediately. Slightly surprised by that. I thought he would take the bishop with check, lure the white king out. But yeah, already there are knight forks in the air. You can probably win material immediately with a knight check, hitting the black queen. The black rook will be forced to give itself up. You can calculate that one. You can trade bishops off first. This might be in its final throws, this game.
Yeah, no bad choices, but he found the best one there in pushing that d-pawn forward. So things just get even more difficult here for Hans Niemann. Of course, he luckily made a quick move. That's going to be the story of the remainder of his game at this point up against Levon Aronian. I am going to go ahead and take a look at the other board on my second monitor, just to check in with it real quick.
And Hans Niemann isn't making quick moves because he knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing it because he has no option, barely any time, and the problems keep piling up. Every move he'll have to guard against big defenses. It almost felt like there was a small smile, a slight smile on Levon's face there. So in control, like you said, can pick up material, can keep the pressure right now on as is. Pleasant choices for Levon and enough time on the clock to work everything out.
The one thing I have noticed, though, Levon's eyes keep darting towards the clock. The one thing, as a time travel addict myself, the one thing you want to avoid against someone low on time is playing at their speed. If you blitz out just to try and hustle them on the clock, then essentially you're playing down at 1 minute as well.
True.
So you need to change the pace, spend 5 minutes now, figure out the path, play a few quick moves, then slow down again. And Hans Niemann's heart rate is only going to be shooting up and down and up and down. So Levon Aronian needs to settle in. This is a critical moment. He could knock him out here if he spends his time wisely.
And looks to be doing so, right? I think that's where you would lean on the experience of a player like Levon Aronian, right? He's no stranger to scary situations or being on the verge of victory. And so taking that extra breath, letting his nerves settle, making sure that he's playing Smooth, smart, calm, precise.
And you know, that's easier said than done, especially with everything on the line. And you know the checkered flag is inside. The finish line is right there. You're so close to it. And in those moments, to stay calm, to keep a control on your nerves, not rush things, not play on your opponent's clock, but continue to play the position. But Levon, you know, it feels like he's managed to compose himself.
Yeah, the checkered flag waving above the checkered board, and it feels like Magnus sees that checkered flag waving as well. Let's hop over to our third place matchup real quick, then we'll come back over here to see where Aronian looks to put the finishing touches here against Hans Niemann. But it's all Magnus Carlsen on the other board here with the black pieces.
Now we see the battle between world number 1 and 2 on the right side of your screens there. Magnus has gone up a pawn. He's grabbed a pawn. Hikaru Nakamura's king looks precariously placed as well. And Magnus Carlsen has a winning advantage. It's as simple as that. I don't know if we jump in or not in any more detail, but essentially Magnus's rook is attacked. If he moves it any safe square, he's a pawn to the good with an attack and a bishop pair.
Yeah, just diving in real quick so you can get some arrows on the board. Make it a little bit easier for some of us to follow the complexities of this match.
Yep. Very quick action replay. We saw the position with the black rook lifting earlier. Here, Hikaru Nakamura played maybe a couple of mistakes in a row. He castled his king on this left side. We said it was impossible to castle on the right side because of the black queen and bishop battery there, but the white king not safer on this flank. Magnus doing something that a lot of people are reluctant to do. Take a pawn on the edge of the board, but here the bishop cannot get trapped. You cannot push a pawn to cage it in because the black knight starts snacking on pawns. So we see a trade, and Hikaru hitting the black rook. The one thing not to do is to take the white knight. It looks like you're winning the bishop as well, but now the black king would get caught in the center of the board. So Magnus is going to move his rook away. We see a move. It is the best one, according to our computer, and Hikaru reacts immediately. He's trying to block up his king's flank, but Magnus's king is going to be safe, Tanya. And a pawn is a pawn with a great bishop as well.
Yeah, that is a big pawn. Despite having those double pawns on the A line, just simply the files that are opened up, the pathway towards Hikaru's king, while Magnus's king super safe after that one move remaining to get the rook into the game. You'll have to time it a little bit, considering that the E7 pawn might be a little weak, so that's something that might be needing some calculation. But that's the thing, right? The story of these two players just goes so much into psychological warfare as well. When it comes to the Paris finals of the Grand Slam there, again, a similar storyline. Hikaru had a shot, did not take it. Magnus Carlsen wrapped up the match, was champion, did not even need tie breaks there. And then coming to this one, it would have been a completely different storyline had Hikaru maximized his chances in game 1. But Magnus, with his flawless approach, he's worse, he finds a way to come back. He's better, he converts it just the way he's about to show in this one.
Back out to that split view because Levon Aronian has made a decision about how he wants to move forward in this game, and then right into it we go. Let's get some lines on the board ourselves. A couple more pieces have left the battlefield, but I see an infiltration onto the 7th rank as well by a white rook here. Things continue to look scary and difficult for Niemann.
This is a massive moment. Levon only has one move to keep the advantage. He has to be careful. He's got 20 minutes. He has to find it. Just a very quick action replay while Levon thinks. We left it here. The best move, according to the computer, was bishop takes bishop, and white would have had a winning advantage since the black rook cannot recapture. Only now the white knight would take, and the black queen would be hit when the dust settles. Exchange up, rook for knight for Levon Aronian. But there were some tactics along the way. He gave a check instead, given a question mark by the computer. Levon's first maybe blip of the day. Rook takes knight, and now the queens do come off, but it's in a manner that favors Hans Niemann because black has a very strong pawn now, 2 squares away from touchdown, and after a bishop trade, knight takes pawn. Here, he needs Levon Aronian to not move his attacked rook. If he moves his attacked rook, the black knight takes a pawn. Suddenly, it's knight and 2 pawns for a rook, level material. He needs to bring his bishop forward instead, something you mentioned earlier, Tanya.
Wow, one move. One move is where the championship rides. If he messes this up, Hans Niemann is back in the game. David, to me, it looks like a move that's not very hard to find. So much of it comes down to, again, nerves and how much time Levon spends on this. The idea is you pin the knight. You come in with the threat of grabbing that bishop, the defender, and picking up that knight. I think Levon plays it. I think he finds it. He's barely missing anything these days in Vegas.
He's nervous, though, Levon Aronian. Did you see that? The arm stretch, that's kind of his tell. And then he was looking up and away. He knows he just needs one last push, one last exertion of energy. And this is the moment. He senses it. Like, these top players, they sense moments, and he knows bishop into the center is strong. But there's some calculation to be done. Like, that bishop will get attacked by a pawn, and it just starts from there.
And you know the fatigue's there. It's there for every single one of these players at the end of a 5-day run here. But that's what separates. That's what makes champions, right? The ability to fight through that fatigue in the critical moments.
But look at his eyes. Okay, he looked at the clock there, but they were looking at his rook. Look, he's looking straight at the white rook at the bottom of our cameras there. He's not looking at his bishop that's quite near him, near his arms.
But the thing is, the moment he moves the rook, the pawn falls, and he reaches out and he finds it.
He finds it.
Is Levon Aronian about to become champion?
Look at that double exclamation mark given by the computer. It's not over yet. Hans Niemann attacks the white bishop. If the black knight had taken the white rook, we would have just seen a trade, and the black rook falling would give white a decisive advantage. Then white can dominate the board with his remaining rook. But right now, again, Hans Niemann testing Levon Aronian. 2 moves. You can take this black knight off the board and allow the black bishop into the center, or you can take the black bishop and an idea you mentioned earlier, Tanya, undermine the black knight.
But then what you have to calculate was what happens if Hans Niemann was to grab that rook once it's given away, as Levon once again takes a pause. He's doing all things correctly in this one. He is Levon Aronian, but he has to still put the finishing touches. And the thing is, when you know the thing you've been dreaming of is so incredibly close, that's when, that's when you start losing your composure. That's when the pressure gets to you. For Levon, he's so close to getting that first Grand Slam win.
And we're still seeing that fighting spirit, though, from Hans Niemann, and that's, again, what's put, Levon on that knife's edge.
Yeah, Hans was under 1 minute a couple of moves ago. He's now up to 2 minutes, so he's building a bit of a bank. But he knows he's just reacting, Hans Niemann. All of his moves have been forced.
But look, the energy has changed, right? He's sitting a little bit more forward. What you mentioned, the tell for Levon, maybe a little bit of nerves creeping in.
It's calculation. He has to find this way forward. He has to figure out that he takes that bishop and then starts getting to that black super advanced pawn on b3, because that's the thorn in your position. David, is that the only move, or does the computer give advantage even with other play?
White has an advantage after just taking this knight off the board, according to the computer, but the biggest advantage is to remove the bishop. And that is because the black bishop is the only protector of black's far advanced pawn. And again, we'll watch the cameras here for Levon Aronian to make a move. Literally the camera there, the phone camera. But rook takes bishop is the best move. Removing the defender of this knight, you cannot take the rook, as after bishop takes knight, this is a double attack, a fork, and the black rook drops off in the corner. So instead, the black pawn will have to take the white bishop. The rook now attacked. You slide across, he plays it, he's going to grab this pawn, and we're going to go to a technical phase in the endgame with rook versus knight. Levon Aronian should be close to winning now.
That's 2 double exclamation points in a row here down the stretch for Levon Aronian. So as much as he might be feeling the pressure, he is living up to the pressure of the moment.
It's on the board, and then he finds the second best move in the position coming after that black pawn, and Hans Niemann has seen it as well. He rushes with a check, but that only delays the inevitable. The king moves, you pick up the pawn.
You saw his face there, Hans Niemann, like there was a grimace. Again, White's king doesn't have too many good squares to go to. You cannot step 1 square across because there might be some pawns dropping with a check. You do not want to entertain the black knight jumping. So you want to move to a square you cannot be checked. But the black pawn in the center, still strong. Hans still playing for tactics here. It's not easy for Levon Aronian yet.
Yeah, but just the kind of performance quality of play that Lev shown, I think he finds his way forward. Like you said, it's a matter of technique right now. It feels like a matter of time. And also Hans Niemann, he sort of pulled himself away from the board a little bit with the way he's sitting right now. And I think he realizes that this has just gone all wrong. And the question is, has it gone wrong to the point of no return or not? Hans Niemann, best case scenario, he holds this game. And for that, he still needs a miracle.
And he's still testing Levon Aronian. Aronian only has 1 move to maximize the advantage. Huge difference between king moves here. He has 5 legal squares. Sliding across, you can slide up or you can slide back to 3 possible squares. I'm going to say the most natural move is also the best one in this scenario. That, I think, helps Levon Aronian because you do not want to get checked by the black knight. So that kind of rules out stepping 1 square across in front of the pawn because the black knight takes a pawn with check. You don't want to really walk too far forward. You leave the black pawn with a straight runway there through to promotion. So blockading that pawn on the first rank, putting your king on its normal starting square in chess is by far the best move, the only immediately winning move for white.
Is that going to be the final hurdle for Levon in this endgame? If he finds king to e1 and then picks up that b3 pawn, is that it?
It feels like after that, the moves will become much more simple. The path will no longer be so narrow if he does find that move. Anything else, and Hans Niemann gets a chance, because the black pawn would likely sit on the second row if the white king moves too far away, and the black knight might be supporting it either by taking a pawn or by using this square. So, yeah, I think it's a natural one.
And Hans Niemann, he was looking down the board on that pawn. I think he spots it. He sees that that's the right square for the king.
Hans sees it, and so does Levon. He'll find king e1.
It's been played. Levon Aronian on fire here.
Yeah, there's been like
Incredible
no blemishes, Levon Aronian. It's just perfect game almost. He's played so well. Hans Niemann has not done that much wrong. It was just a slightly dodgy opening, but Levon's been punishing him so brutally.
Diamonds are created under pressure, and Levon Aronian is beginning to glisten.
Wow, and yeah, to answer your earlier question, Tanya, to reiterate, I think this was the last difficult move, at least for the foreseeable future for Levon Aronian, because now this pawn is doomed. Black's pride and joy, this b pawn is dropping. Yes, there's still one last strong pawn, but that one is not going to get past the white king anytime soon.
And what an absolute joy and privilege it's been to watch Levon Aronian, not just this game, not just this match, but his whole journey here in Vegas. You know, once again, let's remind everyone, let's set the stage for what Levon's done here. Coming into it, you know, not sure of that qualification, lands himself in a position after losing that last game to Vincent Keimer in the round robin, where he has to fight Magnus Carlsen for a spot in the quarterfinals. Not something few ever in the world have managed to get past Magnus in that fight, and one of them, Levon, takes him down in tiebreaker. A huge statement by him. Goes on to win against Hikaru Nakamura. Goes on to dispatch Arjun Erigaisi, finding himself in the finals on the hunt for that Grand Slam title, doing everything right against Hans Niemann.
Hans was reaching out for one of the white pawns. He was about to take a pawn with his knight. He retracted his hand. He's down to the 1 minute mark yet again. At this point, it's just about being practical for Hans Niemann. You have to play for tricks. I think your last bet is to try and set up some knight fork. I don't really see it right now, but if you just allow this game to prolong, the white rooks will dominate. The white rooks are so active, so many open lines, so you have to try something here and now.
So many open lines, and a 3 versus 2 dynamic of the pawn on the right side of the board as well, to try to create an eventual passer when it will be necessary. So you've got enough pawns on the board, you've got the open files. For Hans Niemann, what he would have dreamt of was that Levon Aronian would be playing on a time scramble right now. That's when the mistakes would happen. But look at the clock as well, 16 minutes for Lev to figure this out.
Under 30 now for Hans Niemann here. Clock continues to tick down. He's run out of options, looking for the least bad one, just trying to keep the game alive.
Oh, look at him, he's panicking. He knows this might be it. And this is the best clock handling we've seen all week, by the way, Levon Aronian. Like, he's been slow at some times, he's been fast at others, but this is so, like, in the flow. Like, he's so locked in, Levon Aronian. Hans Niemann, oh, he's only had 3 seconds left when he moved his knight forward. He didn't take a pawn in the end. Now the most obvious move is to run away with this white pawn for Levon Aronian. There we go.
Easy move, right back in the other side of the court. 30 seconds on the clock now, Niemann.
Yeah. He could try some knight fork ideas by pushing a pawn forward, for example, hoping that that pawn is captured by a white rook, and then the black knight jumps in with a check. He does it the other way. The knight checks first. But yeah, the pawn pushing forward would just be met by a rook slide. Easy moves for Levon Aronian. I think he's found all the hard ones. Now this knight is most likely to drop back, hitting the white rook, defending some pawns. But that knight is running out of good, stable squares. It will just continue getting harassed by white's rooks. 23 seconds again. Hans Niemann, the clock, not his friend.
No, his worst enemy at this point. Even worse than Levon. Levon has put him in such tough positions time and time again. He'll go ahead and reach for that pawn. He's one step forward, one spot away from promotion. If only he could get there.
So near yet so far.
And the white rook attacked. You've got to choose where to move. Well, the most natural would be to put it in front of that pawn, just making sure it doesn't move anywhere forward. You're hitting the knight as well. under attack, and the king playing such a key role for Levon. He does it.
Yeah, natural move is the best move. He finds it easily. Right now, all roads lead to championship here for Levon Aronian.
But that b-pawn can still stay alive. Hans can slide his rook to defend the knight. You don't need to move it.
Yeah, the one downside is that then all the black pieces will be stuck. Like, the black rook has to defend the knight has to defend the pawn. The pawn is not moving further forward. The white rook on the 7th rank is going to go pawn hunting. The white king can now eat a very strong advanced pawn. Black is stuck. I just don't see any way that Hans Niemann can try any more tricks.
Completely paralyzed, right? Rook defending knight, knight defending pawn. None of the pawns moving forward. White's rook. And look at that. You can see it on Hans's face as well. Yeah, the dream run coming to an end.
Yeah, the fairy tale for Hans Niemann. It looked for so long, especially in the last game earlier today, it looked for so long that he'd take the win, take the lead. Just that one move earlier today could have cost him a shot at the title here, the Grand Slam. Levon takes a pawn in the meantime. The moves are flowing for Levon Aronian.
Okay, reaches for the knight. Hans Niemann will go ahead and look for the retreat here. Giving up now, it looks like that b-pawn.
Yeah, trying to land a fork.
Wants another fork, exactly. Just those couple of tricks left up his sleeve.
The worst thing is that even if you kind of blunder a fork, you'll still be a pawn up in an endgame for white in a rook endgame. So unlikely that Levon Aronian will allow rook takes pawn and a knight check, dropping one of the rooks. But if you cover this square, this isn't a stable square anyway, you can move the white king forward. You can cover it with your rook. Levon's about to make a move. Oh, the temptation to just keep blitzing, though, for Levon must be there. He knows it's so close to the finishing line. But maybe that's the one thing not to do. He knows he's objectively winning. When you've done the hard work, that's when you spend your time, invest it. Just double check, triple check everything.
It's truly elite discipline. Absolutely elite discipline.
And he brought his rook back, guarding the knight check. Hans Niemann tries to reinstate that idea. Tanya, so many tempting moves for Levon.
And that's what, right, the problem of plenty sometimes when you have these pleasant choices. But again, to reiterate, it's Aronian's time, right, which is honestly just on his side right now. 16 minutes to work out. You can decide what you want. Do you want to push the knight out of the way and then start getting your king closer to that b-pawn? Do you use your rook to attack the a-pawn? Right now, the c3 pawn under fire, that would be one thing that you'd want to defend. Not allow rook takes pawn coming in with a check. And don't get your king on d4. Just a small trick there, you know, as long as knights are alive, you want to just make sure that you're a little careful avoiding some forks.
Yeah. First move that came to my mind was...
Same.
Yeah, that one. One of these two king moves either way. One of them walks into a knight fork, one of them doesn't. So I want to move the king forward. But yeah, of course, there's always going to be tricks with knights on the board. But yeah, if this was 1 minute versus 1 minute, I would say you save this like 5% of the time. But I think with 15 against 1.
You know, David, even for the championship, 5% of the time is just not what you want. And I think for Hans, considering what happened in the first game and this, it's hard to imagine what's even going on in his mind right now, where you just feel like the stars are aligning finally for that redemption that you've been waiting for more than 3 years. And then it's just slipping out.
The turmoil inside. Hans will be furious. Hans will be gutted. And it was against the man who was his best friend a few days ago, Levon Aronian.
Yeah, perhaps gutted in the immediacy. I'll hope in the coming days he reflects on it, though, with a positive spin. Second place here in Vegas would be no small feat for any player in the field.
I think it's been a massive success, sorry, David, for Hans Niemann, whatever happens in this match. I mean, with this field, finishing ahead of Magnus, finishing ahead of Hikaru, going to fight in the finals, just the chess that he's produced, a lot of good takeaways, but this one will hurt.
Yeah, still a breakthrough result either way. Like, he's never been in a situation like this before, Hans Niemann. He's shown he belongs here. He's fantastic results, fantastic play. He's still trying tricks. He's still fighting super hard, Hans Niemann. Every trick in the book. Counterattack, knight fork ideas. Now hitting the white rook, which cannot grab this pawn yet due to the knight fork still.
Do you think coming into this match, Hans considered himself a favorite against Levon?
I think he considers himself a favorite against everybody.
Yeah, including Magnus, I think.
Absolutely. You know, I think, again, and it's one of his biggest assets, is his confidence. And he's putting it on display here, still playing through until he hears that bell ring or his king falls to the ground.
And that's how to do it. This is a good lesson for everyone at home watching, for kids, for more experienced players, even just fight to the bitter end. Set traps, set tricks. You might only save 2% of these types of positions, but it could happen to be in a tournament game, in a championship match.
I mean, if this is one of those 2%, you're sort of taking it with both hands, or at least trying it out till your last breath. But Levon is just giving no chances at all. He places his rook, attacks another pawn. Black's knight hanging does not give Hans the time to pick up the pawn with a check. Everything will come under attack with the king moving closer to that black king. If rook takes pawn was to happen on the board. Hans Niemann tries, but trying against Levon. Levon in this form will not be enough in this position.
Just to point out, the black rook can take a pawn with a check. I'll just very quickly put this on the board, but the white king will step back. Hans Niemann looks devastated in the meantime. The rook attacked, the knight attacked. You can give a check, but one of the pieces will drop off on the next move. So looks like there's no real hope here. He gives a check from the other direction. The white king, though, can step across, defend that pawn we were just talking about. And all of black's strengths are falling. These two black pawns. Hans, he's trying to keep a poker face, very impressive poker face, but we saw it for a moment there.
Yeah.
Head in hands.
Some cracks forming in the facade. Reasonably so. Such a calm move there from Levon. He's walking it into the finish.
Yeah. He's just controlled everything. The white rooks have not allowed a single fork, a single ray of hope here. And yeah, unfortunately, I think this B pawn was the key. Once that one drops, no further hope for Hans Niemann. One more check.
It's been clinical and a controlled performance by white ever since getting an advantage in this game. And you can see it on Hans, that this is about to finish. That C-pawn will eventually start marching up the board. A check given can easily be blocked. You can move the king, a head shake, and that's not a face we've seen on Hans Niemann in Las Vegas.
No, it feels like a resignation in his mind. The question is it a resignation on the board? Rook sliding over to defend the check, offering the trade. Of course, Hans won't take it.
Oh, this is so clinical, Levon Aronian. He's driving away the knight, he's saving his pawn, but he's also preventing any checks when the white king slides back and finally rounds up that errant black pawn over here. Hans Niemann, we might see a resignation any moment now. He's got just under 2 minutes on his clock, but everything is hopeless at this point. He's tried every trick, and they've all been rebuffed.
And what more could you ask for out of Levon Aronian in this tournament? In Vegas, the handshake's extended. He's got no shortage of style, and his style was on full display here in the Vegas stage. Levon Aronian will be your Las Vegas Freestyle Grand Slam champion.
Wow, what a deserving win from the Lion, Levon Aronian. He did it the hard way. He went through so many scary moments. He went through Magnus Carlsen, went through Hikaru Nakamura. Well-deserved hug there from Jan-Henrik Buttner. And Levon Aronian, I mean, the nerves there, just invisible. We didn't see a glimmer from him. He was so in the flow and deserves it.
It's just unbelievable. Hugs and congratulations pouring in. What a moment this is for Levon, the Olympiad hero, the World Cup champion, and now he adds a Grand Slam to his glittering career. You know, he came into Vegas as an underdog in this field, and going on to take down Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, and Arjun Aragaisi, and finally Hans Niemann. It's Levon Aronian who raises the roof and the trophy in Las Vegas.
Yeah,